Swans their first round pick, number 14. Now the 5AA forecast, partly cloudy today, a top of 20 after a low of 8. Friday sunny 24, mostly sunny 29 on Saturday, showers on Sunday 17, showers increasing Monday also 17. More news as it happens on 5AA.
1395, Adelaide's 5AA. This is Peter Godfrey.
And a very good morning. It is nearly 7 minutes past 5. Temperature's dropped a bit more, 7.5 degrees in town at the moment, which is the coolest we've been overnight. One quick text, just going back to Andrew's question earlier regarding the circumstances surrounding his termination from his job. Josh sends through a text just saying, is a union an option, Andrew? Whether that is, I guess you probably would have explored that if it was, but if not, maybe that's an option. Let's take a look at what's happening across the ditch and affecting our Kiwi cousins. Selwyn Manning joins us from New Zealand, from EveningReport.nz. How are you, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter. It's all the birds are singing outside. A very nice morning with the sun shining, with brilliance across the land, and not too bad. And what we're told by Weather Watch online there, weatherwatch.co.nz, and it says a mix of sun and cloud, low risk of a shower. West to southwest winds, 25% chance of some rain. So that's not bad. I mean, temperatures are still down here, Peter, and I understand that that's something you guys are seeing.
Well, we've had, they're sort of starting to climb over the next couple of days. 20 we got today, 24 tomorrow, 29 Saturday, but then we go back to 17 for Sunday, 15 degrees early next week.
Yeah,
so
it's odd, isn't it?
It's a real roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You can't kind of go stride out in confidence in your old stubbies that you pulled out of the drawer or something. You know?
That's exactly right. Exactly
you
right.
Can't get there. Look, the currency markets, the steam in lifting the New Zealand dollar is definitely at this stage has gone. The Kiwi dollar compared to the US, Peter, is 70.9 cents, so 709. And with the Australian, you're looking at 93.5 cents to the Kiwi dollar. If we just turn that around, of course, it's you get about $6.98, so nearly $1.07 back for every Aussie dollar you've got. So that's kind of going down in the right way for exporters here in New Zealand. Look at the roundup of the news around the place, Peter. The New Zealand Herald is leading there with the economy faces turbulence. Are the banks bracing for a storm? So once again, this is another look at whether or not our banking system and our banks in general are able to weather a bit of a dent in there if there's a downturn in the exports, like I'm saying there. If the dollar doesn't come down satisfactorily into the 60 cents to the US, then this strain will continue to go on all over the country. So, it's just looking at that. The housing crisis is obviously linked to this. The big issue at the moment in the country is child poverty. So the Herald is just kicking into the economic angle of that again. The next one down on that, Putin, on the New Zealand Herald and its stories there, is Putin orders Russians abroad to return. So a bit of that going on. Still a little bit of the scandal around the all-black halfback that we mentioned last week, Aaron Smith. One of the outspoken radio jocks, Peter, in the country is a guy called... Going to have my head.
One of those seniors moments there, Selwyn.
Wouldn't he hate that? This guy is so big. His ego is huge. Anyway, Mike Hoskins.
Okay, yep.
He'd say I fabricated that brain fade on him just for a kick in his ego stakes. But anyway, his piece here is Mike Hoskins, and he says Aaron Smith deserves more apologies for his misdemeanours. So that's his view there. Then there's Fairfax's Stuff website, that's stuff.co.nz. That's softer front again on the Stuff site, Peter, and it says, who moved New Zealand? And there's a map of a survey of online community survey kind of thing, which is saying to people, can you locate where New Zealand is? And it's got us placed off the coast of Australia. So you guys are obviously, in the sector there, and you're in the right place. But they've placed New Zealand, all us Kiwis, sitting out there in the Indian Ocean, as opposed to out on the Tasman Sea.
We're out there. You're out there. You've moved.
Yeah, we're off the coast of Perth, apparently. So there's been a fundamental shift in location there. But there you go. Even I don't know if Tasmania, they kind of whacked off half of it looks like South Australia might come into the map, but they've lost the rest of it on this particular thing. But that's Fairfax. I've picked up on that, which is quite a cool little story, I suppose.
Yeah.
An 18 light intersection, it's almost like an IQ test, and this is one of the intersections in Christchurch. And Fairfax is saying, could this Christchurch intersection be New Zealand's most engineered junction? And there's 18 traffic lights on this one intersection in Christchurch. It sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Good grief.
Go across to Radio New Zealand, Peter, the headline there, and this is once again the huge issue that is leading really week after week after week and will continue to. In New Zealand's election year is next year, of course, in 2017. The government is looking more and more and more detached from what is happening out there in the communities. And yesterday we had the Police Minister, Judith Crusher Collins, and she has been criticised over her comments of child poverty. Now, this child poverty is not going away from the government. When John Key was re-elected last time round, he said it was one of his big key plank policies was to address child poverty. They're failing, and failing in a big way. Now, Judith Collins said that it was basically the problem here is not fiscal. There's money out there for people that are facing poverty. She said child poverty is down to personal responsibility on behalf of the parents, and she's been caned for that by everybody except for the Prime Minister so far. But she's controversial always, and we'll see how that goes. But that's the roundup of the headlines, Peter.
All right, now our first topic to delve into, one that is pretty much on the agenda here as well, euthanasia. Now, it's something that's there's been many bills come before our state parliament on voluntary euthanasia, but it's something that's certainly generating a lot of interest over in your side of the world with your parliament to begin hearing submissions on euthanasia.
Yeah, so a quick history there. It does map what your experiences are in quite a number of ways. Our government has had a couple of private members' bills that have been submitted to it in the past, Peter, one by Michael Laws, who ended up being a very controversial mayor in a town called Wanganui, in the North Island of New Zealand. He put a bill up basically trying to get this thing going as well. Then we had Labour's spokesperson for health in the 2008 to 2011 period, a woman called Marion Street. She seemed to be the first spokesperson for health that actually was biggest job was actually promoting how one would top a lot of people off with this euthanasia bill. But that didn't seem to get there before she was out of Parliament, Peter, and now the parliamentarians here, all the politicians, have begun to hear submissions on euthanasia this week. Now, largely the submissions that they're hearing are from people who are wishing to give a verbal rationale on the pros and cons of euthanasia. So the politicians are sitting down. There's quite a lot of them that they'll be going through in the next few weeks, Peter. That there was over 2,200 submissions just purely and simply on this one issue. Now here, the parties are starting to warm to the idea of getting a bill before the House. That basically, in the sense, like your listeners would know, that would make it legal for people in New Zealand to receive assistance with ending their lives. Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of conditions around that particular thing, but there are concerns out there too. Now, the Green Party is quite warm to this idea, and I guess that comes through from its liberalisation of such things in its policy set there. But many on the left are actually remembering back, and I've got to say, I kind of remember back to the 1990s myself, Peter, and I was investigating this particular issue and really the function of the national-led government at the time and the way it was provisioning health. And we were finding that at that stage, health provision was getting more and more expensive. I guess there were a lot of gains and technology gains and things in how people would be treated, a lot of huge gains there, but they came at a time where there was a lot of costs being layered on top of that, and governments around the world were finding it pretty tough to be able to have their public health systems, those that advocated public health systems, to actually afford to pay a lot of these kind of procedures. One of the things that when I was reporting on this is around about 1994, so it's going back a long time, but it is key to this euthanasia bill, I reckon. Yeah. And what happened, Peter, was leaked documents that showed that the Minister of Health had authorised enforcing what was called exclusion criteria, and she started off, a woman called Jenny Shipley, who ended up being our Prime Minister for a time, actually, immediately before Helen Clark won the election. But what this exclusion criteria did was it excluded people from getting renal dialysis, the life-saving treatment that people who are suffering end-stage renal failure will be receiving in many cases to basically stay alive.
Yeah.
And what they looked at there is it's costly, it's ongoing, and it's huge costs around dialysis. Now, Jenny Shipley's exclusion criteria, it prevented people from getting that treatment if they had able to be categorised in certain ways. One of them was if they were blind.
Wow.
Another thing was they wouldn't get this life-saving treatment if they had a history of mental illness, if they had intellectual disability, if they had a history of antisocial behaviour. A criminal conviction got you out of the space of being able to be treated as well. And if you had other conditions that may complicate it, which clinically, that was probably closer to acceptability. And also if you were over the age of 65 or over, was another one of the exclusions that would stop you from getting life-saving treatment. So when we published this, a political roaring absolutely took off in the country. The parliamentary debates, urgent debates on it. The wonderful and famous Prime Minister that we had, he was on the back bench at the time, David Lange, and he picked this thing up and he kind of said, that this criteria, it isn't about ethics. It's not he did a stinging attack really on the government's morality. And what he was saying there, that this you can call it euthanasia, but really it was another name because it was a state interfering on the basis of your how you were perceived as a person and putting its foot on the tube and stopping that life-saving dialysis from occurring. So he was basically hinting that this was state-sanctioned murder in some cases. That's basically the underlying principle of what he was saying in the House at the time. So what was motivating the country in New Zealand to actually embark on this line, Peter, was basically fiscal. It was the constraints, the costs of it. And the government was really coming through. Jenny Shipley was really pushing a strong line saying that this is an ethical discussion that all countries around the world ought to be doing if they are being honest about the ongoing costs of health care. Now, what I'm bringing that history up about, Peter, is the left blogs have picked up this particular issue that raised all of those years ago, and they've been using, one of them in particular, has been using it as a plank of justifying their position on going against this euthanasia bill, saying that the baby boomer generation is coming, the fiscal constraints on governments are going to be huge, the cost of fiscally on governments are going to be huge with baby boomers' age. We all know that argument. Is euthanasia going to be used by future governments as a means of stopping the costs of such things blowing out? So there's concerns all around this. The debate is going on in Parliament. Will certainly go up ratchet up a notch or two in recent weeks. But at the moment, the submissions are coming in for it and against it. Basically, there's been pushing the editorial line over this side of the ditch, Pete, and getting some traction on it, that we need to be very cautious on what we demand and be aware and beware of what we demand in such things. Yeah.
Now, that's a really different aspect of the debate that doesn't happen here. I mean, the debate here about euthanasia is more about whether, if somebody had a terminal illness and could, the relatives think, oh, no, it's too hard to look after them, let's coerce them into, taking up that option. So it's kind of those sort of issues more than this as to whether, exclusion criteria could be brought in for illnesses that to, I guess, hasten that end. So that's a really interesting aspect.
It is an interesting aspect, and it's one of concerns that are born in real history. Yeah. Now, some may say that list that I mentioned just before, Peter, and once again, it was if you were excluded from getting renal dialysis, if you were blind, you had an intellectual disability, history of mental illness, exhibited or expressed antisocial behaviour, had a history of imprisonment, had an unrelated health condition that may cause complications, or over the age of 65. Those criteria went on and on and on. Yeah. I've got to say. And this was in the renal dialysis area. Then I was leaked documents that were government documents that showed that they were ready to roll it out in coronary care. They were ready to roll it out in oncology, so treatments of all cancers. Any area of healthcare that was expensive, they were looking to do this. And really, it was after the political debates followed on from the reportage that did on that particular issue, where the Minister of Health actually abandoned the document, that framework of exclusion criteria, of which was enforcing doctors to follow this exclusion criteria as opposed to their clinical assessment of benefit. So a health benefit irrespective of what the person's background was, meaning if they were intellectually handicapped, it didn't matter. If they got a benefit from dialysis, they were going to get it. So this was a big plan, and they ended up disestablishing the Core Health Services Committee, of which that particular minister had overseen to come through with these advisories.
Okay, so those exclusion criteria, that they don't apply now? No.
What the government at the time had done, was able to get away with it legally because it had an exclusion once again in the Human Rights Act, which stopped the government from having to abide by the Human Rights Act. So government entities, and health being one of them, was able to abandon Human Rights Act and its principles at that time, and put in things like this. Now, the subsequent governments brought all government entities into the scope of that particular act, so Kiwis were protected. What this particular history is illustrating is when a government is driven by fiscal prudence to the degree where it's seeing that citizens of its country of a different class than it perceives itself are not necessarily eligible, or if they are eligible, they're made eligible for life-saving treatments, I think puts a big, underlines a big, underscores that thing where you think, okay, can euthanasia be used as a Trojan horse for future governments to do the same? Particularly when the baby boomer generation is coming up to the point where can such services be sustained on that particular thing? Now, are we suggesting that the government is going to line up some sort of final solution for people? No, but it's that soft end of a very a sharp wedge that can be driven in here, and I think there's caution in this euthanasia bill that outside of the morality and ethical arguments as presented that have relevancy here. So it's going to be a big debate here, and remember, often in the liberalisation of social services or social conditions here in New Zealand, like homosexual law reform, and perhaps the single-sex marriage bill that became law here in New Zealand. New Zealand is often very in this particular region is ahead perhaps of Australia in legalising things that are different. Now, I'm not suggesting that those particular laws are bad, just suggesting that New Zealand on a liberalisation bent is often first off the rank in this particular region. And the euthanasia bill, I think this country is starting to wake up to the fact that it's got to be very, very careful that this is not something that can be tied into those other types of laws.
Interesting thought. And you've written more about it on your website as well, EveningReport.nz, a fairly extensive editorial on what you've just been talking about there. So worth having a look at. Yeah, it's an interesting angle on that issue. As I said, it's something that's certainly on the agenda here, has been for quite some time, and no doubt will be for some time to come. We better move on to some other things, Selwyn, because we're getting short of time here. We might roll straight on to that and get onto a bit of sport. Do we have to? Well, maybe we could. We in rugby, of course.
Maybe your listeners would prefer a very extended ad break, Peter. The rugby results. I was just going to say that you guys, the Wallabies, played the Argentina's Pumas last weekend, and 31-21, fantastic result, obviously, for Australia. They're coming through. But spare a thought for the poor old Springboks, Peter. They played the All Blacks on their home ground in Durban in South Africa, and they lost 57-15.
57-15.
This is the Springboks. This is the arch rivals.
And they were at home.
Game. Rugby's their national game. At least you guys can say, it's not our national
exactly.
game. Certainly not down in South Australia.
It's only rugby. Who cares?
But Springboks, that's a part of their religion just about over there, particularly, Anyway, such a huge, huge, huge win for the All Blacks there, 57-15, just to recap it. Now,
keep rubbing it in.
This whole thing has got a world record on the roll here now. So the All Blacks have got 17 international test wins without any losses. So that's in a straight run. That's now they're going for the 18, which because at the moment they're tied for the world record. If they go for the 18, that's playing you guys, not this weekend, the weekend after. And it's at Eden Park, and there's a bit of a spell against you guys at Eden Park. just to reiterate that, the Wallabies haven't beaten the All Blacks at Eden Park since 1983, Peter.
Yeah, I don't think we'll worry about that game.
33 years. So, but anyway, you can't scoff at these things. These 15 men are going to start that game, not this Saturday, but the one following on October 22nd. It's going to be a cracker of a game, obviously. You guys always don't like coming out as the underdog. You like to turn that around, so Kiwis are aware of that. And the last time we had a decisive loss was at the hands of you guys on your own home ground, however. That was over in Brisbane.
Yes, indeed.
That's prior to the World Cup.
Yeah.
But there you go.
There you go. And I did note last night in the netball, you guys beat us in Game 2 of the Constellation Cup, 53-51.
Yes, so that's tied at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because we won the previous one, 68-56, but 1-1.
Oh, it's great rivalry.
Yeah.
Great rivalry.
Oh, it's good fun. Good fun. Yes, indeed.
Like when we don't beat you guys very often in league, but when we do, there's big celebrations here. We always go in as the underdog in that one, so it tends around. But rugby's the thing at the moment in New Zealand. Obviously, it's the big game, so there's a lot of celebrations. Rugby, Peter, will talk about the darker side of rugby at some stage in the next coming weeks, and there's a real cultural problem that has been expressed. Has to be said. We can't just sit in the glory of the All Blacks here. Real problems coming through. People,
We'll talk
real
about
problem. So we'll go into that in a bit more depth, perhaps, as our item one. But the happy thing is cricket season will soon be upon us, Peter.
It will indeed.
And that will change the dynamic of who's dominating these sports from a Kiwi point of view, anyway.
Could well do. All right, Selwyn, thank you so much for this morning. You have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Okay, Peter, take
all the best. Thanks, Selwyn. Selwyn Manning, editor of EveningReport.nz.
Real Flames, genuine once-a-year sailors on this weekend only. Save up to 60% off Australia's biggest range of gas log fires with unbeatable deals. Nothing beats the romantic glow of a Real Flame gas log fire. Go to realflame.com.au now to see our huge list of scratch and dent specials. Real Flames once-a-year sale ends 5 p.m. Sunday. Don't miss out on the bargains. Real Flame, leaders in gas fireplace technology. 173 McGill Road, Norwood.
Heads up, Sparkies. Clipsal has just launched its next-generation platform, Clipsal Iconic. A complete new design loaded with clever thinking, Clipsal Iconic features new innovations like mech locking bars and changeable skins and dollies for unrivaled customisation. Next-level switches and sockets that give you more options and your customers more capabilities than ever before. Clipsal Iconic. It's a game changer. Check out clipsal.com/iconic for your nearest launch event and book today.
Cooper Tyres, America's most trusted 4x4 tyre, are now the most trusted tyre in South Australia. The ST Max and STT Pro are Cooper's latest generation and most advanced 4x4 tyres to date. Tested and proven by Cooper tyre engineers in Australia's outback, they are ready for anything. For more info on the latest generation Cooper tyres, visit coopertyres.com.au or call 1300 Cooper now for your nearest Cooper tyre dealer.
We don't often realise we have hearing loss until friends start repeating themselves. We miss the little nuances in conversation, or sounds become indistinguishable in loud situations. Hearing aids can help, but really they're only part of a bigger solution. South Australia's Speech and Hearing Centre take a holistic approach to your hearing loss, providing proven and tailored communication strategies that make a huge difference. Google South Australia Speech and Hearing Centre. That's South Australia Speech and Hearing Centre.
Don't miss this! For only 4 days, 4 incredible days in 2016. New Age Caravans Adelaide. $2 million of caravans must be sold. Prices never to be repeated. Save thousands. New Age Caravans Adelaide. Ask for either free solar, free leather upholstery, or free electronic stability control. You may never see a sale like this again. 4 days, Thursday, October 13, must end Sunday 16. 1172 South Road, Clovelly Park. New Age Caravans Adelaide. Don't miss this.
This is Adelaide's 5AA.
Mostly sunny and 20 today. It's 5:30. I'm Anne Stone. A fortnight after the state was plunged into darkness, our electricity network is finally back up and running at full capacity. Electranet has built 5 temporary transmission towers and will now focus on permanent repairs. But the debate continues as to whether the outage could have been avoided. 3 separate reviews are being undertaken into the events of September 28. And a local MP is asking the federal government for a one-off grant to fix the roads damaged by SA's recent storms. Member for Mayo, Rebecca Sharkey from the Nick Xenophon team, wants $10 million. She says our roads need urgent attention.
We have the bushfire season coming up shortly. It'll be here before we know it, and a number of the roads, particularly Montacute Road and the roads in the northern part of the hills, are inaccessible at the moment, and that is just too dangerous for those communities.
One of two schoolboys arrested in Sydney as they were allegedly preparing to behead someone is the son of a convicted terrorist. Officers swooped on the 16-year-olds at a prayer hall yesterday after they'd bought 2 bayonets at a gun store. They were allegedly found with written religious statements that police say were going to be read out during the beheading. Australian mining magnate and philanthropist Andrew Twiggy Forrest is defending his credentials on the welfare issue as he calls for urgent reforms. In an address to the National Press Club, the Fortescue Metals Group chairman called for courage in leadership to deal with complacency and laziness. And Mr Forrest has told the ABC he's seen what's happening firsthand in remote communities.